A few days back, we ranked all the main bosses in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice from easiest to hardest, but of course those aren't the only challenges awaiting Sekiro players, because when the main bosses aren't beating you to a pulp, the game's litany of mini-bosses are doing that to you. Many of them, in fact, are even harder than a lot of the main bosses themselves. Here, we'll be ranking all the mini-bosses in Sekiro in order of difficulty, starting with the easiest and counting down to the most challenging. We start things off with Mist Noble. Really a mini-boss only on pure technicality. While getting to the Mist Noble can be somewhat tricky thanks to all the fog, the fight itself is hardly anything worth remembering. The Mist Noble is just waiting for you to get a stealth death blow on him to begin with, after which it doesn't even bother attacking you and takes significant damage with each hit. Shigenori Yamauchi. Yamauchi is a tutorial really, but at least on paper he's still a mini-boss. He exists to teach you about posture, so he's easy by design. His moves are slow and easy to dodge, while his posture is quite easy to break. Unlike the Mist Noble, he at least tries to put up a fight though. OKAMI leader SHIZU. Much like the Mist Noble, getting to SHIZU is much harder than it is to actually fight him. His lightning attacks can be deadly and not exactly easy to dodge, especially when you first encounter him. Once you learn the patterns though, it's not all that challenging, and after getting to him you only need a few hits to take SHIZU down. NAOMORI KAWARADA. KAWARADA is the first actual mini-boss, and by extension the first boss, that you face in Sekiro, and he puts up a decent challenge. He's the first time you have to dodge swipe moves, while attacks also hit hard. That said, learning the required dodges and counters isn't all that challenging, and the fact that you can get a stealth death blow on him to make the fight easier makes him a perfectly manageable, though still respectable mini-boss encounter. ENSHIN of MISEN. Shinobi hunter ENSHIN of MISEN is found in the Hirata estate, but he's not a very threatening encounter. His moveset is a bit too dependent on thrust attacks, which makes him weak to the Mikiri counter. Even if you don't use the counter though, some of his attack animations are long enough to be easily sidestepped, which then gives you a good few seconds to go in and get in a handful of solid strikes to whittle his health and posture down. TENZEN Yamauchi. TENZEN Yamauchi by himself isn't an exceptional boss encounter by any means. He's another general swordsman, and though he puts up a good fight, deflecting and dodging his attacks is by no means a tough ask. What makes this encounter slightly more challenging is the fact that he's surrounded by a bunch of soldiers, one of which alerts everyone in the vicinity if he spots you, and he can spot you from a pretty long distance. Still, dispatching all the enemies one by one with stealth is perfectly doable, after which the one-on-one fight against Tenzen isn't exceptionally hard by any means. KURANOSUKE Matsumoto. Matsumoto, much like Tenzen Yamauchi, is a pretty standard sword-wielding general, but also like Tenzen, he's surrounded by a bunch of other soldiers. The difference here is that they're all cluttered very close together, making it crowd control a little harder, not to mention the fact that many of them are gunmen and can attack you from range to make life miserable for you. That said, the arena has plenty of grapple points, so cheesing stealth is a perfectly viable option here. All you have to do is kill an enemy, grapple away, re-enter stealth, and then repeat the process. Hell, you can even get a stealth death blow on Matsumoto this way. Long-armed centipede giraffe, SEN'UN. The long-armed centipede mini-bosses, both of them, pretty much demand perfect parries, so these can be challenging encounters if you don't have that timing down. That said, by the time you encounter them, you probably will have that timing down, which means breaking their posture won't make you sweat, even if it will be a test of skill. You'll also have to contend with other smaller centipedes, but the abundance of grapple-friendly rafters up above make them easy to deal with. Chained Ogre. Chained Ogre is probably the first real challenge you'll face in Sekiro. Though he's not nearly as much of a challenge on repeat encounters as he is the first time, that first time is still pretty damn challenging. His moveset is taken right out of a professional wrestler's book, and he can also be a bit of a hitbox nightmare. That said, step dodging comes in pretty handy in this encounter, while having plenty of spirit emblems at your disposal to make use of your flamethrower will also prove to be quite helpful. Having some oil in your inventory is also a bonus. JINSUKE SAZE. JINSUKE SAZE, much like the Centipede encounters, is a fight that demands you to make use of Sekiro's parry system. The difference here is that SAZE is a lot faster than the Centipede bosses, with a moveset that is a bit more varied too. Even if you can see his attacks coming, dodging is easier said than done. Not to mention the fact that if he lands a hit on you, it's nighty-night time. If you can master the dodges and the deflect though, breaking his posture doesn't take too long. Armored Warrior. The Armored Warrior isn't just the mini-boss responsible for the "Robert" memes. He's also a pretty cool mini-boss encounter, set against a striking backdrop in the middle of a bridge. Trying to bring his vitality down is pretty much useless since he's, well, armored, which means the fight boils down to deflecting his attacks to break his posture. That is also easier said than done, because the Armored Warrior's moves can be unpredictable and hard-hitting. JUZOU the Drunkard, SHIGEKICHI of the Red Guard, TOKUJIRO the Glutton. The fight against JUZOU in Hirata Estate can actually be very challenging, considering the fact that that's the first time you encounter this enemy type, not to mention how he's surrounded by his goons. Running away from the battlefield to cheese your way through said goons is a viable strategy though, and if you make sure to only talk to the friendly NPC after that, the fight against JUZOU can actually be managed pretty niftily. Then there are TOKUJIRO and SHIGEKICHI, who are a lot easier to deal with, since by this time you know their movesets pretty well. SHIGEKICHI's use of fire attacks makes things a little trickier, but it's nothing that can't be handled. This boss has multiple encounters in different forms, but it has doubtless sent players into raging fits of fury and been the cause of many a broken controller. Firecrackers make the fight a little easier, but the first encounter is no cakewalk by any means. The second encounter is noticeably easier though, simply because of the fact that you've already done this before and are much better equipped to deal with it this time around. Long Shadow Longswordsman. You'll be coming across a lot of Lone Shadow variants of mini-bosses in Sekiro, but they'll almost always manage to put up a solid fight. These are fast, agile soldiers that can strike furious flurries that can deal a lot of damage, and parrying these moves isn't always easy, because of just how fast they can be. Step dodging around some of their moves does give you a good window to get behind them, and land some hits of your own to damage their vitality and posture. But even that isn't exactly easy, because the timing of that step dodge needs to be very precise. Lone Shadow VILEHAND. Lone Shadow VILEHAND has all the agility, reach, and strength of the Long Shadow Longswordsman, which makes this mini-boss hard enough to deal with as it is. On top of that, however, VILEHAND also uses poison and poison attacks, and poison buildup can be very deadly, especially when at the same time you also have to dodge and parry all the strikes coming your way. Getting that dodge timing right is still the key to beating this mini-boss, but the added threat of poison makes it a little more challenging. Long Shadow MASANAGA, the Spear Bearer. If VILEHAND is a step above the Lone Shadow Swordsman, MASANAGA the Spear Bearer is another step forward, equipped with the same moveset as well as with poison attacks, but also placed in an arena that is much smaller, giving you a lot less room to work with. Dodging attacks, which have plenty of reach as it is, becomes that much harder here. Though the fight isn't unsurmountable by any means, it's still a respectable challenge. SHICHIMEN Warrior. The SHICHIMEN Warrior is just as tough as it looks, and just as terrifying, literally. Because just like Headless, who we'll get to in a bit, this too is a mini-boss that mostly deals terror-inducing attacks. Terror from his attacks also builds up very quickly too, which can lead to a quick death. Thankfully, dodging his attacks once you begin reading them right is perfectly doable, while having pacifying agents in your inventory also helps a great deal. Snake Eyes Shirafuji. Snake Eyes Shirafuji is a combination that will haunt your nightmares. Not only is she a mini-boss with a varied arsenal of moves that can deal a lot of damage, she's also a long-range specialist and fires deadly projectiles at you from a distance. Getting to her is also no easy task because she's surrounded by soldiers who are also shooting at you. Dodging her grab is a great way to get a few licks in, but this is definitely one of the most challenging mini-bosses you'll come across in the game. Odin of the Water. The encounter against Orin of the Water is a hell of a fight. She's fast, her moves are unpredictable and hard to read, and she can literally phase in and out of existence, which basically makes her immune to physical attacks for a bulk of the fight. Much like many other fights in the game then, the fight against Orin requires you to deflect and parry, which isn't easy considering how unpredictable she can be. Thankfully, her posture meter isn't the highest, so if you can read her incoming attacks precisely, breaking her posture doesn't take too long. Snake Eyes Shirahagi. Shirafuji might be a tough encounter, but she's got nothing on Snake Eyes Shirahagi. Why? Shirahagi has the same moveset as her counterpart, and she too is surrounded by other soldiers who are constantly shooting at you. So why is she more challenging? Well, because this encounter takes place on a small island surrounded by a toxic lake. Maneuvering your way around the constant barrage of projectile attacks becomes a lot harder here, and fighting against the environment while also fighting against the mini-boss and regular enemies proves to be a tough challenge indeed. Headless. Man, what a terrifying mini-boss this one is. You encounter Headless several times throughout Sekiro, and each time it's a literal nightmare. Headless emits an aura that slows you down to a crawl, which makes dodging its deadly and hard-hitting attacks very difficult. It also inflicts terror, and incurring too much of it means instant death. From Software also cruelly decided to have some fun by putting one of these bosses in a branching optional path pretty early on in the game, but that's From Software for you, I guess. Shikibu Toshikatsu Yamauchi. Shikibu Toshikatsu Yamauchi is the toughest mini-boss encounter in Sekiro by far. In fact, it's almost surprising that he isn't a main boss. He definitely poses more of a challenge than a lot of the main bosses in the game. Shikibu's attacks have a surprising amount of range. His moves are inconsistent and hard to read, and boy do they hit hard. The Mikiri counter can come in very handy in this fight, while it's also pretty easy to get a stealth death blow on him. Even with the help you get from all that though, this fight is hard as nails.
And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, please hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to switch on the notifications bell icon next to it. That way you'll never miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.